Last week I made a bunch of shapes with acorns, leaves, and feathers, and a process called cyanotype. I wanted to use these cyanotype prints to be the basis for creating some interesting scenes with watercolor. Well, let's see how I did. I'm Boru, aka Brian, and I'm happy to have you here. I like to share art, ideas, inspiration, and a bit of silliness on this channel. This idea of creating things out of random blobs is not new. In fact, I did a video on creating some friendly cartoon characters from brightly colored blobs that were printed on paper. This is Jack, by the way. If you want to hear an interview with him, then check out that video up in the corner. Sometimes I'm very considered when I draw. I'm planning out my subjects carefully, thinking about perspective and composition, but sometimes I like to let a bit of randomness in. Not to take over exactly, but to provide some unexpected hints. I find it's a playful way to begin an art project. It allows you to be creative and observant, and it's a challenge that can be fun and sometimes rewarding. Wow, see all those white blobs here? What to do with this? I was looking for some sort of order in this chaos, and I will admit, on this first drawing, or painting, I didn't find much order. I was thinking originally that I'd find maybe half a dozen shapes that I could turn into characters, like our friend Jack from earlier. On that sort of project, there were a collection of blobs. They were all together, but they were individually very separate, so each character was defined. On this cyanotype print, these blobs are all together, and they're more connected. So this piece, I think, ended up looking kind of disjointed, but it certainly is. It is different, and I'm totally cool with that. Experiments, they often have unexpected results. And I did not expect to draw some pregnant alien with a viewing portal being visited by a hot air balloon, mechanical fish, and whatever this thing is. We should definitely interview it later because I just want to know. Oh, this just in. We got a few words with, apparently the name is Cosmos Pondera. Let's hand it over to Charlie somewhere in the Kuiper Belt.
From the Boru Art World Headquarters Interview Department, this is Charlie Bobarley with a few words with Cosmos Pondera, celestial entity beyond both space and time. Cosmos, if you could replace the sun with any breakfast food, what would it be?
I would replace your sun with a large yet impossibly flaky croissant. Each morning as it rises, it would shed golden crumbs of light, and it would bask the galaxy with its buttery glow.
You have very lovely teeth. What is your secret?
Why, thank you for noticing. My routine is a bit beyond the typical three-dimensional thinking of humans. I brush with the conceptual essence of purity that flows through the multiverse. I regularly floss with quantum strings, which not only cleans my teeth, but connects me with alternate versions of reality.
Thank you, Cosmo and Charlie Bobarley. After seeing the results of that last one, I decided I would allow myself to be a little less faithful to the shapes provided by the cyanotype. I still wanted to use the blobs as hints, but I wanted to create a scene as opposed to a collection of things and creatures. On this one, I definitely saw something. It was practically screaming at me. That feather image seemed to be perfect for a fluffy tail on a, well, what is this? It's like a mouse or a mole. squirrel kind of thing. I really don't know. Part of the reason for doing this experiment was to see how the cyanotype would hold up to watercolor paints. And I can report that it holds up just fine. Yeah, that blue isn't going to go anywhere fast. So this is both good and I found a little bit problematic. I think having a single blue as an underpainting should help to tie things together. And yeah, I think that it does do that. However, the watercolor is generally an additive process, so the colors will generally have to get darker than that blue. And that's a bit limiting. In a few areas, after I got a little bit further in this painting, I felt that I needed to go lighter than the blue was allowing me to do. So I used paint pens in those areas. Gouache might also work because that's opaque. I tried to be sparing with this, though. I still wanted to basically honor the randomness of the cyanotype underneath. For instance, the full moon here. The white shape that was there wasn't exactly a circle, but I cleaned it up so that it would be. And I love the little swoop down the bottom of that moon there. Now, I wouldn't have thought of having this sort of shape. I guess it's sort of like a mountain slope through there. I just love that. I think it looks great. And this red blob in the trees, I had no idea what I was doing with this. But it ended up having kind of a cool sort of look, a mysterious glow to it. Maybe something calling from the trees. I think that's one of the reasons this composition ends up being a little bit more successful than the last one with Cosmo in it. I think it would be easier to imagine a story here. In this case, with that weird red color coming from the forest, it just kind of makes you wonder a bit, what could that be about? And with the full moon, it's a little bit mysterious. And you know what? For an answer, let's turn our attention back to Charlie Bobarley, who raced down to the hills of Beaver Creek to have a chat with our feathery-tailed friend, Moonwhisker.
Let's chat with our friendly woodland creature, Moonwhisker. What are you, a mouse, a mole, a squirrel?
I don't know. I've never really thought about it. I'm just Moonwhisker.
Oh, very good. So, what is the story behind your cap?
Oh, this old thing. Shucks. I found it at the old campground over by Beaver Creek while I was out foraging for acorns. At first, I thought it was kind of a mushroom, but I remember seeing something like it on a glowing box in the campground ranger station. So I figured it out, and it keeps me protected from the hot sun.
There's a red glow that comes from the forest during the full moon. What do you know about that?
I am not exactly sure, but it started up a few acorn seasons ago, and old Grumpy Badger thought it was a forest fire, but no, there's no heat. I heard tell from a wise owl that it got something to do with a special moss. It soaks up moonlight all month, and then releases it when the moon is its fullest. Squirrels love it. They go crazy with their cheddar parties. But let me tell you something confidential like. I think it makes these snuffleberries that grow there extra tasty. Don't you go telling no one. It's my secret foraging spot.
Thank you, Charlie and Moonwhisker. On this third piece, there seemed to be another obvious shape to me. And I admit, I've recently had cicadas on the brain and in the ear. And I decided to go easy on the background on this one and let the blue be blue. Kind of left me with the feeling that this was sort of in space somewhere. And I also saw what I imagine to be a crab claw, which you can see in the upper right. The rest didn't grab my arm and tell me it was something. So I just kind of left it for the most part and left it, kind of as decoration. The one thing I really dig about this one, that white acorn shape in the top center. I use this as sort of like a sun, and that's the source of light on this epic showdown. Using the white reflections to really highlight that.
Chronos Stridulus, you are the defender of all life against the invasion of space crabs, for which we thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Who is your fiercest enemy?
Admiral Snapclaw, my adversary he is. To know that the claws that snap are but ripples in the surface of the vast cosmic pond is to be like the bamboo, flexible, yet firmly rooted. Even the mightiest of crab shells cannot withstand the persistent song of truth and harmony.
Along these lines, what TV show do you consider to be your favorite?
I am not always so philosophical, and I love to unwind with the Smurfs. Aren't we all a bit on the azure side sometimes? I think it makes things Smurf-tastic.
I, for one, am very relieved that the space crabs will not be invading my home. Thank you, Chronos. Man, can you imagine space crabs? Man, no thank you. He deserves all the Smurfs reruns he wants, and I'm just putting it out there. But moving right along, in this last piece, I again went to familiar ground with an isopod. I also saw maybe I could have made a turtle out of this shape, but the isopod won out because it could more reasonably rest on a vine. I used the white blobs to point out shapes and leaves and flowers and such at the bottom, and that ends up being quite a tangle, but I still think it works. It ends up being mostly just natural color and texture. This fine fellow that I'm painting is based on the lemon blue isopod, apparently found in Thailand. The lemon blue is a cave dweller, though, so not likely to be found naturally amongst the leaves and the flowers. But just remember, this is based on the lemon blue. I know I got a couple comments before showing surprise that isopods are collected by people as pets sometimes. And I learned recently just how colors will pay pretty good money for a new type of isopod. Now this guy that I'm showing you, the rubber ducky isopod, which is really cute by the way, was selling at the time when they first were selling them, 10 of them, $300 or more. Oh man, fascinating. I mean, for little insects, they are pretty cute. And, by the way, they aren't insects. That's something else I learned. They are crustaceans. They are more closely related to lobsters and crabs than insects. Wait a minute. Crabs? Are there space isopods? Should I tell Chronos? Oh man, maybe before doing that, we should interview this guy and see if he seems to be a threat or not.
We've caught up with Bartholomew, colorful isopod and eater of rotting foliage. Listeners want to know, would you rather have $1 million or dinner with Jay-Z?
$1 million or dinner with Jay-Z, you say? I don't really need money, and I'm not sure who this Jay-Z fellow is. Can he find juicy decomposting matter?
I don't think so.
Maybe he'd like a meal of detritus in this lovely field. It's a lovely sunset most nights. Does he appreciate those sorts of simple things in life?
Oh, are you asking me? I actually don't know.
Well then, I suppose I'll take the dinner. If he shows up, great. If not, well, more rotting leaves for me.
Well, Bartholomew sounds like a bright and chipper fellow. I think we're safe. I'm so glad we got to interview him. And these interviews would not be possible if not for our sponsors. Let's thank them now.
Today's interviews have been brought to you by food. Food. It's what's for dinner.
Hey, Mom, can you get us more of that food? Food!
Thank you for joining me today on this trip to, well, everywhere. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to help this channel to grow. I sure do appreciate it. More fun stuff to look at next week. And until then, bye-bye.